Lynnie. Yeah. Worldwide.
Take two. Thank you for tuning in to the MMA Podcast. It is a late night, September 24th or the 23rd, depending where you're tuning in. But if you are tuning in live, we're glad you've done it. It is the MMA Podcast. We got a ton to break down. Bellator DYNAMITE was this past weekend, the first mixed glory and Bellator event going down in San Jose. We're going to talk about that. We have a UFC event in Tokyo this coming Saturday, headlined by Josh Barnett and Roy Nelson. We'll talk about that card a little bit. A few other topics, the Uriah Faber-Dwayne Ludwig feud going on. A piece by Josh Gross about Vitor fighting hot at UFC 152, and a ton more. Let's do it.
We did it, mama. We did it for the love of the game. We did it, mama. I did it for. The game will never be the same. We did it, mama. I did it for.
You're listening to the MMA Podcast.
That's right, Lynnie Hart with the call on the podcast. She also had a pretty epic call at Bellator DYNAMITE, which we'll play in a minute. But first and foremost, we've got to introduce tonight's panel. Of course, myself, you can follow on Twitter at the MMA Podcast. And we're joined tonight not by one, but two close buddies. First and foremost, P Money. You've heard him on probably the last month or two of TMP. He's been breaking it down. Pat, what's going on, brother?
Yes, Big Jake. Pleasure to be back with you this Wednesday night. Just hanging out, enjoying a lovely evening, ready to break down some fights, and ready to go for a three-man panel tonight.
Yeah, and Pat is the man to my left, the man to my right. Probably has sat in the co-pilot position for more episodes of the TMP than anyone else, probably. And he took a little sabbatical from the show, but after taking a little summer break, I've gotten so goddamn many tweets and emails. Where's Ramses? When's Ramses going to come? Hashtag free Ramses. He's on Twitter at the Aunt Jimmy Show. He's the host of The Word on the Street. It's been a hot minute, Ramses. How the fuck are you, bro?
I'm doing pretty good now, Jake, from the MMA Podcast. I am on the comeback, people. They tried to kill me. They tried to keep me from spreading the word on the street. Just to keep it short, they're still after me, so I'm currently in hiding. But I figured I'm in a safe location right now. I'll have to shift from place to place. But basically, I was jumped by about 1,000 ninjas one night in Austin, and they handcuffed me, threw me in Lady Bird Lake, left me for dead. I fucking broke out of there like Liberace or Houdini, and I swam all the way back to I'll say I'm in the Houston area. But nah, man, I'm back. I'm almost at 100%. It's like I've been in a coma, man. I gotta work my way back, get to being 100%, getting that game going again. But it's so good to be back on the MMA Podcast. I'm looking forward to it, and also bringing back my own podcast, because I ain't going away. I'm not gonna die until they fucking give me the championship interview, and you'll have to tune in and follow me at the Aunt Jimmy Show to find out when the fuck that happens. It's coming soon.
Yeah, and we post The Word on the Street on the same iTunes feed and YouTube feed, so you'll be able to catch it as long as you subscribe to us. And if you do want to subscribe on the iTunes, on the YouTubes, you can just visit themamapodcast.com. Been working on bringing that. I'll keep it up to date for a few months, and then I'll just get busy with something and completely slack off and not update the podcast or the website. So I do apologize for that, but the links at the top are always fresh. They always work. So if you do want to subscribe and you want the links, you can just click the tabs at the top and subscribe there. And yeah, I can't wait to start doing some more word on the streets. I'm sure. I think Jamie's always down to do a show, and his little one Tiago is probably 5 or 6 months old now. Shout out to the good coach, the living legend, Jamie Healy. And shout out to the whole fucking family, man. The Filthy FRB show, they just had a new episode tonight with Josh Gross, who posted that kind of damning article on Deadspin about the UFC potentially knowing about Vitor Belfort and PEDs and kind of knowingly letting him out there to fight John Jones. Just another added to the giant stack of damning things that have come out about the UFC and the UFC brass in 2015. So yeah, Josh Gross on the Filthy FRB show. Honestly, the last 3 episodes have all been quality. Josh Gross, the UFC 191 Filthy FRB fight party. It was myself. I was on that with Front Row Brian, Filthy Tom Lawler. Ben Askren was chatting with us for the Manawa Rumble fight. And then Chael P. Sonnen himself joined us for the co-main event of Mir Arlovsky and the main event of Mighty Mouse versus Dodson. Chael had a lot of interesting stories. A couple interesting hot takes. I mean, fire red hot takes. Listen to it. You would maybe be surprised who he maybe insinuates was on the hot magma and now isn't anymore. It's a fighter you really wouldn't expect. And I think we're going to be doing another fight party this coming Saturday for the UFC Japan card that we're going to be breaking down at the end of this show. So follow me. I'll be tweeting the links at the MMA Podcast, but also follow at Filthy FRB Show for links to just podcasts and the fight parties. And I'm running that Twitter, so you may as well follow it as well. And Front Row Brian, Filthy Tom Lawler. Enough with the fucking plugs. Let's dive in. Bellator DYNAMITE. Like I mentioned at the top of the show, the first co-promotion between MMA and Glory. This was DYNAMITE 1, the first card at the SAP Center in San Jose, California, a place we also know as sort of the birthplace of Strikeforce. So Scott Coker kind of putting his thumbprint on that in the San Jose area. And before we start breaking down the card, I just got to play this awesome clip from the start of the show with Lynnie Hart announcing the fighters. The Pride music you'll hear, it wasn't actually a part of the broadcast. Someone just put it over her voice, but it did sound a lot cooler with the Pride music, so I'm not going to find a version that omits it. But yeah, this was Lynnie Hart's call at Bellator 142 DYNAMITE, and you can hear, even back to her Pride days, she has not lost a beat. was awesome hearing her call at the event. Weird fact about her, no one really seems to know. I don't even think she herself knew until we sort of asked her about it on our show a few years back. Anderson the Spider Silva, maybe the best fighter of all time. Lynnie Hart actually gave him that nickname, mentioned, oh yeah, you have really long limbs, you walk around like a spider, and apparently Lynnie Hart is where the spider nickname came from. Honestly, there were so many prelim fights, it would be just a waste of time to try and go over all of them. Wikipedia or Google that shit if you're really that interested. If you're listening to us, you have the internet. So we're gonna fast forward all the way. You had a Josh Thompson, Mike Bronzoulis fight that we could break down, but I think that went down about as expectedly as we all thought it would. Thompson winning the fight. The only surprising thing about the fight was I thought, going over to Bellator that they were going to offer him a little more money. I mean, Thompson might not be the most dangerous lightweight in the world, but he's still a marketable name, had big fights in both Strikeforce and the UFC. Only got paid $10,000. I was expecting something above or around 50, but homie only got $10,000 for beating Mike Bronzoulis in the third round. Paul Daly won a kickboxing fight against another MMA fighter via a boring decision. I thought he'd get a knockout, but Daly won. He was a huge favorite. Zach Makwasa was a favorite, but actually lost via majority decision, 48-46, 48-46, 47-47. But he actually is still relatively green in kickboxing, has mentioned interest in getting involved with MMA soon. So I think we're going to hear a lot about him, especially in MMA, once he starts to get a little bit of experience. He has a ton of talent. I saw him knock out Pat Barry live in Denver, and the guy is for real. Let's talk about that light heavyweight tournament. I guess we had 3 fights in the semifinals. King Mo beat Linton Vassell. Phil Davis beat Emmanuel Newton, sort of like Pat and I postulated would go down. And we expected a fight between Phil Davis and Mo Lawal, which was actually the fight we talked about more. And that was the fight we should have gotten, except Mo Lawal got injured in the semifinals. Francis Carmont, who won on the prelim card via 2-round decision, was slotted in for him, and Phil Davis beat him with relative ease. Seemed to have an easier time in the finals with Carmont than he did in the semis with Emmanuel Newton. Both of them were first round finishes. A Kimura toward the end of the first round against Newton in the semis, and a KO about halfway into the first round against Francis Carmont. To me, what I really noticed out of Phil Davis was he obviously had a big lack of striking offense in the UFC. It was downright terrible at times. He would get outstruck by fighters who weren't good at striking at all, were terrible strikers, was getting outmatched on the feet almost by everybody. But I think watching him now, maybe that was just a lack of him opening up, because in both the Emmanuel Newton and Francis Carmont fights, I don't know if he just knew these were lesser fighters, because he's a smart guy and he knows he's kind of fighting in the B League now. He's not fighting in the big show. He's fighting in a lesser organization that's probably going to bring more confidence. You open up a little bit more in your striking. I think Davis has just been afraid to really open up and leave his chin out there to get countered. I've been just so scared and tentative to really throw anything. Whereas when in Bellator we've seen 2 fights out of him and 2 first round finishes, whereas in the UFC you were seeing a lot of decisions when it came to both his wins and his losses. So Davis, to me, seems like the obvious best 205er in Bellator. I think he's going to beat Liam McGeary, and it might be another first-round finish. And he'll be the king of Bellator, as long as he wants to. And see if he wants to go back to the UFC. I don't know what the move would be after that, but I think Phil handles anyone at 205 in Bellator. Pat will throw it to you, and then we'll toss it over to Ramses making his goddamn valiant return to the show.
It is quite the occasion. Wow. As far as Phil Davis, I'm not quite sold on him being the guy to beat Liam McGeary. I mean, he kind of struggled against Emmanuel, the hardcore Kid Newton, who fights like he's slam dancing with somebody. His technique is not necessarily the one you would call textbook. Phil Davis was not liking what he was having with the stand up there, and he ended up taking Emmanuel Newton down, doing his thing, working that grappling expertise, and he was praying to God he got the back, which he did, got him down, and ended up getting the submission. And I don't know how he knocked out Francis Carmon. I mean, I don't know that Phil Davis's striking really has improved. I'm sure, though, as you noted, his level of competition has gone down. Emmanuel Newton's probably the easiest fight. He made it look that way. I mean, this was a 2-round fight. He came out, finished in one, and then fighting Francis Carmon. I mean, this was a guy, now, granted, I want to say he worked up like a 6-fight streak in the UFC. He had a good little win streak going there. That was at 185 pounds, though. Granted, he was a very big 185er, probably a natural 205er. But be that as it may, Phil Davis still, this is a guy who was cut from 185, coming up another weight class, and he did what he should have done, and he handled him. Liam McGeary, though, Jake, I believe you alluded to this previously, does train a little bit with Renzo Gracie and some legit grapplers over there. And so he's got that in his back pocket, not to mention he's very huge for 205 pounds. And so he's going to be a tough test for Davis. I'm not sold on Davis having striking whatsoever. I don't think I'll ever be sold on Davis having striking. I don't think he can be trained up to have decent striking. I mean, I hope he can. No disrespect. He's a fantastic grappler. But anyhow, that's just how I see it playing out. But yeah, it was a fun light heavyweight tourney, just in the sense that it's a good throwback. Bellator, they've been keeping the tourney scene alive, or at least they were until they stupidly killed it. It was good seeing them get back to that, and good seeing a one-night tourney get sanctioned on a big stage like that. Hopefully that sets a good trend going forward.
Yeah, I usually don't watch Bellator events, but I saw this one earlier today, not live. It was almost 3 hours of just nonsense. I had to fast forward through most of it. Bellator DYNAMITE. I will say that I did like the tournament format of the 2 5-minute rounds. It gave people you don't get that feeling out round at all. Like, you have to win both rounds. That's it. You can't lose one round and then think there's still a chance. It's like you got to win both, or that's it. That's a done deal. So that was cool. But other than that, it was fucking. When you're a little kid, and you're setting off fireworks, just playing around, like sometimes you'd light one and it just wouldn't fucking go off. That was Bellator DYNAMITE, man. They were good for Phil Davis, but yeah, I agree with P Money here. I think it was a fluke that he actually managed to knock anybody out. In fact, I'll have to watch it again just to make sure it really happened, because I still don't fucking believe it. And I'm just curious where that power's coming from. Everybody gets on the UFC's ass about drug testing. I wonder if they're gonna drug test anybody, Phil Davis in particular, for this card. I'd like to see those results. That knockout power, what he just fucking. Sorry, that's my phone there. It alerts me when they're trying to come to kill me again. But yeah, what was I saying? Oh, Phil Davis. Yeah, there's a reason he got cut from the UFC. Besides the fact that he looks like Arsenio Hall, and Vinny Magalhaes, his shoulder or something was hurt when they fought, and that was the only reason he lost. And that's all I have to say.
True, yeah. We'll let you change locations really quick or something if they're coming back after you to murder you again.
I killed him. He's gone.
Oh, all right.
We're good. We're good. Sorry.
Wrap your cell phone in aluminum foil. There you go. Step one.
Actually, I'm in a room covered with aluminum foil. I'm not joking. I'll tweet a pic later.
Perfect.
Probably another person who lives in a room full of aluminum foil is Tito Ortiz. Lost in a fight against Liam McGeary where he was a giant dog. Man, it's a shame we don't have any audio of Tito just talking punch drunk, half coherent nonsense after he lost, because that would really be the audio to have.
What does that mean to you, man?
I worked really hard for this camp.
Trabajó muy duro para este
I gave my
campamento.
heart and soul for 18 and a half years.
Oh wow, I didn't know that was the Spanish version of it. I'll have to find another version a little later, but Tito's speech after the loss was, I don't know, very Tito-esque. Just made a bunch of excuses and was like, yeah, I'm really good. I love my kids. It was powerful. I love you, Liam McGeary. I don't know. I don't know where he goes from here. I think this is his last fight ever. I hope this is his last fight ever for his cause, maybe. I mean, you see him in pressers, and the guy is almost Diego Sanchez level of not really being able to speak coherently. He's only 30, but you look at his record, and he's had a lot of fights against people who can really bop you. I mean, shit, in his 6th fight, he was already in the title hunt fighting Frank Shamrock for a belt. His very first pro fight was at UFC 13. UFC 13, the guy's been around for a fucking while and was the face of the UFC for a while there in like 99 to 02, 03 when they were really blasting off. He was the guy. So yeah, he's one of the most hated names in the sport, and I think that's not really, the guy really hasn't done anything crazy like, hit a pregnant woman drunk with his car like Jones, or killed a baby like Rampage, or, hit women like, you can name fucking 10 fighters there. But at the same time, it's just something about the air of him. I don't know anybody who actually likes Tito or Ortiz. Just, I don't know if it's something ringing false about his personality, but I don't know. I heard him in an interview, I believe, with The Fighter and the Kid, maybe half a year ago, and it sounded like he was gonna make this one last title run, go at a shot against McGeary, and probably win or lose, retire after that. So hats off to a good career if this is the end of it. But at the same time, as a fan, I don't want to see any more Bellator, World Series of Fighting, UFC, you name it. I don't want to see Tito on a fight card against a guy who could be actually furthering himself. I mean, Tito's 1-8-1 in his last 10 fights, or some crazy 3-8-1. And 2 of those wins were works in Bellator. So let's call it 1-8-1. He had that fluke win against Bader, and that's it. So yeah, Tito, you're a bum, but nice career, I guess, would be the synopsis of that rant I just went on. Pat, what do you think about Ortiz, McGeary? You touched a little bit on thoughts against maybe Liam versus Phil Davis next, but what do you think about Tito? You think this is his last fight ever?
Jake, I can barely stop laughing right now. Tito. Oh, man, Tito Ortiz is such a fucking joke. Nobody likes Tito. Tito doesn't even have fans. His family doesn't even like him. Little known fact, Ramses is Tito Ortiz's cousin. He doesn't even want me to tell people that just because he doesn't even like the dude. He said, I don't even have Tito's number anymore. That's
Fifth Amendment.
Man, as far as the fight of Ramses, you know what? I would almost just want to defer to Ramses. It's been so long since we've heard this guy, and I'll tell you what, I saw Liam McGeary get this inverted triangle on Tito Ortiz, and I said, you know what? I want to know if Ramses thinks this looks like a work, because it just smelled like a fucking 1,000 dead fish. It was it just reeked to me. And Jake, I would also like to echo your sentiments. I hope we no longer see Tito fighting. People. Oh shit!
I got the Ramses drops ready for you.
Oh shit!
The fight was a work, people.
That is the best. That is the best drop. I really hope we don't have to see him again. I think it's just the belly aching. You know, nobody likes hearing that after so long.
He is
you hear that
a
belly
faggot.
He's just. I mean, Ramses, this is your cousin here. Come on now. Let's. I really didn't want to put you on a blast like that.
Faggot.
Maybe I misheard you there. But what did you think of all this business? Was the fight a work?
Well, yeah, I thought it went without saying. Like, as soon as I saw it, like, I'm just gearing up here, people. But yes, the fight was a work, and it was a disgusting one. The tell was, immediately after he gets like fake arm barred, like Tito like does that motion like dang, and it looked almost rehearsed.
Shucks, Ramses.
And then you find out, he was the highest paid. He got $300K for that fight. And basically, they used him up. His contract's probably up, and it's like with pro wrestling, you bring in the classics, the big names, to put over the new guy, and that's exactly what happened. That's what we witnessed. And I did just tweet the pic of the command center that I'm currently hiding in. It is covered in aluminum foil, but chills on a poster visible, and also a couple of tributes to my favorite musician of all time, musical genius Michael Jackson. But yeah, Tito, man, Jake, you're saying like he's never, done a hit and run, cocaine, pregnant ladies, this and that. We don't know that. I mean, I did see the damning evidence presented by his ex-wife Jenna Jameson, and you could clearly, oh Jesus, they found me again. I'll take care of that in a second. But you could clearly see that Tito was at some point in his life using and I believe abusing ibuprofen. And when you crush that shit up, it becomes worse than heroin and meth and crack combined. And that's a fact. That's actually shady streets, but the word on the street.
Ibuprofen. That's
Yep,
so
100%.
They profen these days.
It was 100% prof, dude.
Street
Word on the street. Yep.
taking the prof to the dome.
Chemistry.
Damn. Man,
Wow.
we do have a couple news topics, but one thing that was made official at Bellator DYNAMITE, Fedor. News came out about Fedor. We had heard from a lot of people, and you know what? People say, front row Brian, he's an unreliable source. I don't call getting it right 90% of the time unreliable, especially when you're the first one dropping it every single time. Brian's got a couple contacts over at the UFC, and it sounded like Fedor was headed that direction. From what I've heard, it was very close from, getting signed, sealed, and delivered. But at least for the near future, Fedor will not be coming to the UFC. He's not going directly to Bellator either. It's weird. He's fighting with a Japanese promotion that's partnered up with Bellator. This fight promotion doesn't even have a name. They don't have an opponent for him, and they don't have a specific venue yet. But they know that their first show is going to be New Year's Eve in Tokyo, and Fedor will be headlining the card. The boss of the fight organization is former Pride FC boss Nobuyuki Sakikibara. So right now they're just calling it Sakikibara, or Sakakibara. I'm not sure the pronunciation there. And yeah, we all know Pride blew up and was awesome and was a thorn in the UFC's ass until they just bought him out in 2006. So Coker, the former Strikeforce boss that the UFC ended up needing to buy out, and Pride are sort of the ex-bosses are forming, I guess, some sort of promotion to be partnered up with Bellator. It sounds awesome. I think this is, especially in this trying time of MMA, pardon me, where the UFC just seems to be making sketchy dealings at every turn possible. This is what the UFC needs: competition. Keep them humble. Make them realize, damn, we can't fuck our fighters over from pillar to post, or else they'll go join our competition. It does sort of disappoint me. I mean, big picture, it really excites me that, the former Pride boss is joining up with the former Strikeforce boss. That's badass. But looking at the small picture, it's kind of sad because it's Fedor and he's older and he's not going to really have many fights left in his gas tank. And if he is going to have fights, I would fucking love to see him against so many fighters in the UFC. You have old school matchups against guys like Krokop or Arlovsky. You have guys who you never saw him fight because they were UFC guys, like a Frank Mir maybe, or the new blood of Kane and Travis Brown and Ben Rothwell. All of these are Stipe or Struve. All of these are really interesting fights, and I'm afraid we might see him just go over to Strikeforce and have a fight against like James Thompson that doesn't mean anything, or a fight against Chick Congo that doesn't mean anything, where I would have loved to just see Fedor fight under the UFC banner. It would have been fun. It would have made our friend of the show, Ben Askren, probably the best fighter of all time who had never signed for the UFC. I think he's currently number 2 behind Fedor, and Fedor is one of the best ever. So yeah, I still have a little hope that Fedor joins with the UFC just to see those matchups. But big picture, this is awesome news. This is this means trouble for the UFC, which means positivity for MMA. And it's sad we've gotten to this point, but the UFC is the one who backed themselves into this corner of, you know, the sport needing change and needing opposition. Pat?
No, that's perfectly said, Jake. Realistically, I have mixed emotions about this whole thing. Fedor crushing somebody and breaking a human being's soul on New Year's Eve and sacrificing them to the gods. I mean, it's like a yearly tradition. It's like Punxsutawney Phil coming out and seeing if we're going to have a couple more weeks of winter. I love that tradition. I miss that tradition. Watching Fedor just curb stomp somebody on New Year's Eve really gets me pumped for a new year. I'm just ready to go come January 1st. I'm like, I'm going to curb stomp this fucking new year, just like Fedor crushed that helpless can on December 31st of last year. So I enjoy that, and I appreciate that. The UFC, they weren't doing anything for New Year's Eve. And this contract, from what I understand, it does leave it kind of open. Apparently, it is just a one-fight deal. So, theoretically, Fedor can fight this one fight and then go over to the UFC. But you know what? Just like what was happening, you know, this was supposed to be it. This was going to be the fucking one. No, Fedor was done. He was signed up. Oh, Dana White is leaving like winky face emojis on his Instagram or some bullshit, you know. Fedor's never fucking coming to the UFC. He's not. I don't believe that he is. Even if this is just one fight, I don't think we'll ever see it. I hope we will see it. But at this point, I'm just content to see him crush a can every New Year's Eve. If they can trot him out for, you know, maybe like SummerSlam or something like that, or whatever the MMA equivalent of that would be, just to give him 2 a year, keep him somewhat active, that'd be nice. But yeah, I don't think Fedor's ever coming to the UFC. There's that chance, but with just their crooked back alley dealings and Dana Don King White doing his thing up in there, I don't think Fedor is going to be hooking up with them anytime soon.
Yeah, the word on the street was that, you know, the UFC was finally going to do the Fedor thing. It was happening. Everything was in motion. Dana White was even alluding to it with a smile. But of course, somebody pulled a fast one on him, I'm guessing. The problem with the UFC trying to sign Fedor is the fact that, Fedor wouldn't. I don't see him agreeing to two things: the money, for one, and the fact that he would actually have to fight a real opponent, like have a real fight. Now, why would you? I mean, what would you guys do? Fight in the UFC against a big name and have it be real, or fight in the Saki promotion and you know for a fact it's going to be a goddamn work and you're going to win because they got to build you up because they put all this money into you. Do the math, people. All right, why the UFC means it would be a one-time gig. This Saki promotion, dude, he can go on forever. And I heard they signed a few other people too. I don't remember who, one of the Gracies or something like that. So they're building it up. There's gonna be a little bit of a war, but I mean, come on. At the end of the day, we all know how it's gonna turn out. Nothing's gonna trump the UFC that I can see in the near future. It is the best mixed martial arts promotion out there. It's going to remain at the top. And Fedor, come on. For real, you walk down the street and ask 10 people, if they know who Fedor is, and you'll get punched in the face or robbed or whatever they're doing. These days. I don't go out much, but God bless Fedor. I think he probably needed the money. He's got to kick a few bucks up to Putin, I'm sure, but he's gonna come out on top. He'll win every single one of these fights, and hopefully he's done enough to make it look convincing for the mindless zombie MMA fans. Word on the street.
Yeah, and I think both of you make a good point, Pat. I'm also looking forward to seeing him knock a sucker out on New Year's Eve, but I don't know. I feel like in the past when he was in Pride, it meant something. And now it's just sort of going through the motions because him not signing with the UFC, as much as I like it big picture, him not fighting the cream of the crop doesn't mean anything. It's just him going through the motions. And I'll get super pumped for a Fedor fight once he fights a top-level opponent, and I just have a feeling that that's not going to be the case. Let's move on to the news. And fuck it. Let's play that beautiful news theme. Gotta play that news theme that I know NBC will be suing me for one day. We went really deep into Nick Diaz last week, and I don't want to get too verbose on it this week, especially myself, because I had like a probably 5 or 10 minute rant on the NSAC and the unfairness and Nick Diaz and all that. But I think we'd be remiss if we didn't let one of the most outspoken members of MMA Podcast history, Ramses, talk about one of his greatest loves in the green medicine. I think it was to be expected that Pat and I would both be outraged over the decision, but Ramses, you've stood by us and championed calls against those who punish people like Pat Healy for getting down with the devil's lettuce. Tell me what your first reaction was when you heard about the Nick Diaz thing, your thoughts on the rules, on Diaz, on NSAC, just the whole deal. Break it down for us.
Thank you, Jake. It does take a lot for me to actually experience what you people know as or refer to as emotions, but I believe that my feelings echoed the same as everyone else's. First, it was disbelief, and then it was outrage, and then it was resolution. And actually now, I believe that this is probably the best thing that could have happened as far as the Nevada State Athletic Commission goes. They have finally, there's no question about it anymore. They finally showed their true colors, their incompetency, their arrogance, pride, hubris. They've shown that they should not be making decisions on any sort of level, backed up by any authority whatsoever. And in fact, I actually have a list of demands here for the Nevada State Athletic Commission. Excuse me, this will be very brief. First off, I demand that Commissioner Pat Lundvall immediately resign. Or just be fired, kicked off by the commission. I'm not sure how it actually works. I'm sure they're not even sure how their shit works. But they need to get rid of her at the very least. I will also settle I mean, if they all resign in shame and disgrace as they should, I'll accept that, of course, gladly. But we'll take Pat. We'll take Pat Lundball, and it's a damn shame, P Money, that you're stained with the same name as her. And by the way, what the hell is that, Pat? What is her real name? Patricia? Is she male or female? I believe that the Nevada. Second demand. I demand that the Nevada State Athletic Commission be submitted to drug testing as well. If they're going to make these types of decisions and have authority, they drug test police, they drug test government officials. I think the Athletic Commission should be drug tested as well, and I believe that Pat Lundball would fail. I don't know what she's on, but just look at her, people. You can tell she's one of those nervous pill poppers. She's popping something, Xanax, methadone. I don't know, but she is. I mean, that's my opinion. Just look at her. She's on drugs. I mean, the behavior. I mean, they had that one commissioner. I think he resigned. The guy that showed up the one time, in that green suit. That I don't know if Bob Barker from The Price is Right is still alive or not, or if he died. I don't remember. But if he is alive, he wants that suit back. What happened to that guy? I don't know. Maybe he realized. Maybe he was the smartest one of the group, which tells you all you need to know. But I didn't see him there. I don't want to see Pat Lundball there ever again. What they need to do is immediately just unsuspend, remove the suspension from Nick Diaz and all the charges against and fines against him in toto. This is robbery. They just saw an opportunity, take some money off of this guy. They couldn't even follow their own damn rules, which he should have received at the max 3 years, and that's if he was guilty. And they still, in a court of law, there's reasonable doubt here. It's the whole Nick Diaz passed 2 out of 3 tests, so it's not going to hold up in court. I do believe that it will be reversed, but that doesn't. I mean, yeah, Nick Diaz will be free. Hopefully they give him back his money. But that doesn't solve the problem that the commission is still there right now as we speak. They need to get rid of Pat Lundball at the very least, or resign. Or if Dana White and Lorenzo Fertitta want to be real about it, save a lot of money and a lot of trouble, a lot of headaches, just to do what Vince McMahon did when he was tried by the government for the whole steroid thing back in the 80s or 90s. He just declared, he admitted it was sports entertainment. It wasn't real. It was rigged here and there, yes, and there was no case. There was nothing. They should declare the UFC sports entertainment, in my opinion. Get rid of these commissions. They're crooked, and everybody knows it now. There's no doubt. No one can make the case that this was not just crookery, highway robbery, kangaroo court, a sham. Nick Diaz, he got shanghaied. He should declare bankruptcy, actually, in my opinion, if they don't give him his money back, because they don't deserve a goddamn dime. So Nick, if you're out there, man, just file for bankruptcy. They'll never see a dime of your fucking money, and just fight, just do it. I mean, and then they'll have to be another hearing, at the very least. But this is going to a higher court. It's already under appeal. So we are going to win, but whether or not the commission goes away, that's the main problem here. but they've exposed themselves, like I said. So I do believe that it's only a matter of time before Pat Limbaugh goes away or they all go away. And those are my demands. That's because that's the word on the street.
Man, I would love to see the NSAC get kicked out, but man, if there's one thing I've learned, it's that getting a government job, you gotta fuck up. You gotta basically kill someone to lose your job. You have Kim Davis over the clerk of courts who won't marry gay people in Kentucky, and she still has to step down if she wants to get her job taken from her. I think it's gonna get overturned in appellate court, no matter what, just because the ruling was stupid as fuck. The whole procedure and process was fucked. There's not much in this whole situation that wasn't fucked up. So I'm pretty sure Nick Diaz will be freed as far as that effective lifetime suspension. As far as the NSAC getting disbanded, though, I'm a lot less optimistic. It's hard to lose your fucking job up when you're doing that corrupt government bullshit work. One other thing I want to talk to you about, Ramses, before we get into news. Pat and I talked last week, too, about this Matt Brown thing. Matt Brown, noticing that Kelvin Gastelum said in an interview, or maybe it was Dana White, but it was made public that Kelvin Gastelum would have a nutritionist paid for by the UFC for his fight against Matt Brown at the Tough Latin America 2 finale. Gastelum's had trouble making weight at 170, missed weight twice, almost missed weight another 2 times, and the UFC said, okay, if you're going to move back to 170, we're going to pay for a nutritionist for you. And Matt Brown tweets out, like, really? What the fuck? Isn't this a conflict of interest? You're paying for a nutritionist for one of your fighters? Like, what are you going to give me? Or are you just treating one specially? Look, I love me some Kelvin Gastelum, but not only do I agree with Matt Brown here in him saying that this is a conflict of interest and it's some bullshit, I also agree with Matt Brown on the second half of his statement, which is that Kelvin Gastelum is going to need more than chicken and broccoli to stop him from getting his ass whooped on November 21st. And this, you know, I love Kelvin, and maybe the language is a little coarse there for someone I'm such a fan of. But Matt Brown just has been so on his game. Gastelum, I don't think he's ever fought someone like Brown. And I think if he, you know, doesn't take it seriously, like maybe he has in the past, especially when it comes to making weight, I don't think he wins the fight. I think Brown takes it. Ramses, what is your thought, I guess, on the fight and the whole conflict of interest thing with the Immortal getting a little upset at the special treatment going on here?
Yeah, well, just when I'm starting to like Matt Brown, he pulls this shit. It's not. See, the problem is, I'll give you. He used the wrong wording. I mean, conflict of interest. I don't believe that he knows what that means. He should have said favoritism. And he would have been correct in that. There is a case of the UFC showing favoritism by providing Kelvin Gastelum with a nutritionist, but at the same time, it's not a conflict of interest. It's actually in the UFC's best interests to make sure that their headlining fight actually happens. And that Kelvin does weigh in like he's supposed to. And, you know, he's, I mean, I have to ask myself, would I be saying this if I didn't actually know Kelvin? I mean, I knew Kelvin before he was in the UFC, literally. I mean, officially, while he was, after he got done with Tough, but before he was in the UFC. But I do believe I don't see any problem with the UFC helping their fighters make weight because that's the UFC helping themselves. I don't think. I mean, either way, if Matt Brown wins, if Kelvin wins, it's a no lose for the UFC. Matt Brown, to me, it just reeks of someone already making excuses in case they lose. All right, and I think it was unprofessional. I mean, speak ill of the company for one. I mean, what the hell? That's not very smart. We've seen what happens to fighters when they start to rage against the machine that is the UFC. The people putting money on their fucking or food on their fucking table, money in their pocket, roof over their head. It's like it's just always a dumb move in life to talk shit about the people that are paying you money to work for them. But not favoritism. I believe that they would also help Matt Brown if he had the issue or if he requested it. They would play fair. But of course Matt Brown's like, I don't need one. Whatever. Yeah, tough guy answer. But that's the truth. I mean, if they were like, if the UFC denied Matt Brown the right to a nutritionist provided by the UFC, then he would have a good case for, this is blatant favoritism. It's not. Kelvin has a problem. He's asked for help. The UFC has offered it before. This time he took it, and it's all going to work out. And as for Matt Brown whooping his ass, I don't believe that's going to happen, people. How many times have we said, have people, not me, how many times have people said, oh, this is going to be the one. Kelvin's going to get his ass whooped. There's no way he's going to beat this guy. And he's beaten every single one of them except for the one loss in his entire life, which was a close split decision. And he wasn't even at 100% for that one. This kid, man, it's like, who's he going to have to beat? Does he need to have the belt before you guys finally give it up to him? It's like, who was the last person he fucking fought and destroyed? I can't even remember. He's destroying these people. And it's people that apparently he didn't stand a chance against. Never count him out. I believe he's learned his lessons. Yes, the UFC is helping him. There's no conflict of interest. It's in their best interest. And Kelvin, KG, man, love you to death. Got to have you on the show for the 7th time. The Word and Street Podcast. Get him on the MMA Podcast, whatever. We need to talk to that man because it's been a while. And I wish him nothing but the best. And I do believe he is going to dismantle Matt Brown. Especially since Mr. Brown is already making excuses. Word on the street.
Damn, I still think I'm picking Brown, but after a speech like that, you gotta think about it. I mean, it will be a close fight no matter what, and I will be rooting for our boy Kelvin Gastelum. Unless we have Brown on between now and then. Quick note, UFC tonight mentioned that Lyoto Machida says he's taking some time off but wants to fight Michael Bisping early 2016. I think this is an absolute what is the word I'm looking for? Absolute ass beating. I think Machida wipes the floor with Mike Bisping. Are you thinking the same, P-Money?
Oh, hell yeah. This is Machida just saying, hey, I want a get-right fight. Where Bisping at? Bisping's been that good call out for a minute now for whatever reason it may be. People want to try and make their name off of him, and he's a good name to try and do it. Bisping was that Conor McGregor back in the day. People forget that when he was coming up on Tough 3. back when the Ultimate Fighter still was kind of something. Michael Bisping, he got a little bit of love, and he was that talker, but he was showing those good flying knee knockouts and shit like that. People were all up on Michael Bisping. And he's still got a bit of that. He's always hanging around in the top 10, more lower end these days, but always been top 5, top 10 in his division, whichever division he's competing at, be it 205 or 185. But yeah, Machida calling him out is just like, I guess they are both at more similar parts or more similar points in their career. Machida, he's certainly not the invincible dragon he once was. He's been taking some losses. Yoel Romero, if I'm not mistaken, was his most recent fight where he got put to sleep in a fashion nobody had ever done to him before. Yoel Romero just brutalized that man in such a fashion. I would want to get right fight too after something like that. You need a confidence builder after just being completely fucking brutalized in the fashion with which he was. The things that were done to his body against his will. Good Lord. But yeah, Machida calling out Bisping. I think he would cleanly knock him out. Unless Bisping were to get him with the pillow fist blitzkrieg, but I don't think that's happening.
It's at this point that I have to point out to any of the listening audience that I am the only person on this podcast who is currently not on drugs. Machida's a dead man if he fights Bisping. All right. I don't know about you guys. I guess you must have forgotten in your drug-induced haze. The last karate guy that went up against Bisping was Kung Lee. And do you remember what Kung Lee's face looked like after Bisping was done with him? It was tremendous. Michael Bisping, I think I still believe in him, man. I still believe in him. He's got some gas left in the fucking tank, man. And Machida, I can't even recall his last victory. Who was it? I don't even know. All I know is that Bisping wiped the floor with the last Karate Man on his home soil. He might as well have been wearing the American flag trunks, Apollo Creed's, Rocky Balboa's trunks. It was glorious. I thought that fight was going to be a work too. I thought they were going to put Kung Lee over, but Kung Lee looked like a mess. And then after that, of course, he hates the UFC. No, seriously, what has Machida done lately? I can't even remember. He's in for it. You guys are gonna be surprised. I'm guessing. Actually, I'm doing more than guessing. I'm betting. Any takers? Let's put $50,000 on the table here. Bisping will destroy Machida, and then Machida will retire. That's my prediction.
Hey. Big cash money. I'm interested to see where the line sits. It'll for sure be Lyoto being a favorite, but I could see you putting Lyoto anywhere from minus maybe 200 to minus 500. It'll be somewhere in that range. I'm curious where Vegas sets it. Would you agree with that, Pat?
Yeah, I would think so. Again, I feel this fight, as far as the bookmakers go, I would think it'd be fairly close on the lines.
Yeah.
Maybe minus 200 one way, plus 150 the other. I'm thinking that's about the max where those are opening up.
Yeah. I do want to move on really quick. This thing with Uriah Faber and Duane Ludwig is just spinning out of control. Ludwig apparently apologized and tried to bury the hatchet. And then Faber said some shit about Ludwig having a temper, saying stuff like, where are we going to pick it up here? Saying, yeah, he starts coming public, and this is a quote by Faber, saying ignorant things about my team, which has a bunch of future champions like Cody Garbrandt and Paige Van Zandt, Andre Feely and Joseph Morales, and Angelo Trevino, some guys who Dwayne probably doesn't even know their names because they didn't pay him any money. That becomes offensive to me. On top of that, it's going to come out on this reality show. You're going to see, because Connor picked up right away when Dwayne started making comments about no one on our team is a champion except TJ. He goes on and says some interesting things about Dillashaw's relationship with Ludwig. Uriah says, quote, I sat down with TJ and I sat down with his father and his wife. We shed some tears. He shared with me for the first time that he had asked Dwayne come out to hold mitts and stuff for him for his title fight, and Dwayne refused him. And TJ started bawling and was pretty upset that he'd given so much. TJ was babysitting his kids. He was paying him extra money. He was doing all of his videos. TJ was like that with Master Tong too. TJ lived with Master Tong. He'd give him rides to the casino. He'd give him extra cash. Like, TJ knows how to bring the best out of his coaches and their relationships. So just has a lot of harsh words for Ludwig. I don't know, man. I sort of was siding with Ludwig here, but man, Faber seems to have some specific ass stories. And then then fans start to dig up clips of like Dwayne snapping at Rogan on the podcast. Rogan interrupts like a long rant. He's like, "Hey, stop interrupting me." And it's just like, oh shit, maybe Faber is actually making a point here. Faber ended up saying toward the end of the interview that he did actually regret bringing him on as head coach of Team Alpha Male, which, man, if you would have said that Faber would have made that comment a couple of years ago, I would have called you crazy. You know, Ludwig seemed like the best thing that camp had ever experienced. All the fighters, their striking seemed to take off. But now all of this shit. We'll get to Pat first and then Ramses. What did you make of the latest week of back and forth between Uriah Faber and Dwayne Bang Ludwig?
Well, Jake, I hate to burst the bubble of the public here on this one, but I didn't make anything of it because I didn't follow one iota of it. This is some gossip. This is some BS back and forth drama. I mean, as they say, the truth usually lies somewhere in the middle, but I mean, and who is it? Uriah Faber's straight telling stories about TJ Ludwig bawling and crying. You're going to put stories out there about the UFC bantamweight champion bawling like a little baby bitch? That's, why are you going to up and do that? Sounds like a bunch of drama to me. This is like, I don't know why a bunch of fighters gotta be like this, See, I'm like Mary J. Blige. I don't want no more drama in my life. I'm over it, quite frankly. They just need to kiss and make up because they can't fight about it.
Yeah. Before I comment on that, I'd like to point out that Lyoto Machida has lost his last two fights, submitted by Luke Rockhold and KO'd by Yoel Romero, both this year. So he's on a 2-fight loss streak. Anyway, the Ludwig Faber thing, I actually read, I listened to Faber's rant on the Ariel Hawaii show, whole thing, and I was like, all right, it's too detailed, too specific to not be the truth. And then I read the article where Ludwig actually responded to that shit, and And he confirmed that, yeah, those incidents did happen, but then he tried to reason them out and explain them and say, you know, there was a lot of joking going on as far as African Americans go. The black guys on Team Alpha Male, he played everything down basically, but he didn't deny anything. Yeah, I do remember seeing him on that Rogan podcast, where like he did get a little testy, and snapped at Rogan, but then immediately like he was like, "Oh, I'm just joking," like exactly like Faber said. So I do believe it, and also, of course, there was a time Jake had him on the MMA podcast, and I was co-interviewing, and I asked Dwayne Ludwig about, you know, the possibility of Faber versus Scott Jorgensen being a rigged fixed fight, since they both share the same manager. And you know, I could tell, you know, if I had said that to him face to face, there probably would have been a little bit of what's it called, some alpha mailing up on his part. But we kept it cool. But I did catch a hint of not a loose cannon, but someone who would be prone to lose their temper quickly if provoked. But like I said, keyword provoked. I think they're both right and they're both wrong. You know, Uriah Faber, he obviously is the man over there. He owns the team. He owns even the houses that the guys stay in. He rents them out to them or some shit like that. Team Alpha Male, the way it works, every fighter's purse goes into some kind of one single fund for the whole team. It's kind of weird. It's like I used to be in a bunch of bands, and we had the band fund, and of course, it was always empty. The money goes here, the money goes there. That's all their squabble boiled down to, which is pretty sad because they had a working product. He is a good coach, Dwayne Ludwig. I do believe that deep down in his heart, he is a good guy. I think, you know, he was just under a lot of stress and pressure, and some people can't handle that. Some people don't behave like they would if they were totally content and happy and secure. And the fact that he came out and tried to squash the beef last week, and then this whole thing got sparked up, I think it shows that, you know, there is good in Dwayne Ludwig, and we all know Faber's a cool guy. He just, you know, didn't know what he was getting into, and it looks like neither did Ludwig. And sometimes that happens. It's just a damn shame because they were putting together a winning team, and I don't even know how Team Alpha Males are really doing now, as far as compared to the Ludwig era, but I don't think it's been as good. So this whole thing hurt the team, and that's sad to see. But that's life, man. You know, it's like, you know, never lend a family member money. It's that sort of deal. Sad shit. That's all I got to say.
And yeah, a little bit of audio there from a page I just brought up about Martin Kampmann. You know, they plugged him in after Ludwig left not too long ago, and Kampmann's already out. He's stepping down, albeit under better terms. So Faber, I don't know if they'll be looking for another coach or Faber will just assume that role. I mean, you got to figure he is himself close to the end of his UFC career, and I'm sure he would probably want to step into that head coach role whenever he does retire. You know, who I think is the big winner in all this Faber versus Ludwig stuff is Conor McGregor. I mean, he's the one who started it. Even Uriah admits to that, saying the whole thing that started this up. Where was it? Quote. Let's see. Oh man, I had it highlighted. Basically, here. Let me see if I can. Conor picked up Dwayne. Conor picked up that Dwayne had been talking a bunch of crap about our team and was like, dude, what's up with that? And it ended up being a confrontation on the show, blah, blah, blah. So Conor sparked all this, and I think he's really the big winner here, which it's so bizarre that they're coaching opposite each other and at the same weight class, basically, and they're not going to fight each other at the end, yet they're both going to fight on the same weekend. Faber, I think, is fighting Saturday, and Faber Friday and Conor Saturday. That's such a weird part of the show. We will move on. The Vitor story, I encourage you all to read. There's not really much of a talking point on it that's not obvious. We all know that Belfort was on massive amounts of drugs back in the UFC 152 era around that time. And we also know the UFC is shady as fuck. And we've talked about both topics pretty extensively, so unless either y'all want to pipe up now, I mean, there's not that much. Vitor fought dirty, the UFC is shady and covers up a lot of shit. I think we've talked about that and it's accepted now, so there's not really much to talk about. But the story itself is pretty captivating. Just Google Deadspin. The name of the article is "A Sketchy Drug Test Didn't Stop Vitor Belfort from Fighting at UFC 152." And it was published by Josh Gross just about two and a half days ago. Like I mentioned at the top of the show, Gross, the latest guest on the Filthy FRB show. Definitely visit them on Twitter at Filthy FRB Show, FRBshow.com for links to subscribe. Very interesting story over there at Deadspin, penned by Josh Gross, aka Yei on Twitter. Let's get to this Tokyo card, and we've sort of been trying to keep the podcast around an hour and a half recently, and I guess it's decent timing now that we get to our last topic. This UFC Japan card. We're not going to break down the prelims or the first half of the main card. And honestly, I think let's just break down the main and co-main event here. We've got a prelim card on Fox Sports 2 and then the main card at Fox Sports 1 starting at the standard 10 p.m. Eastern fight time in the East. The main card starting with Mizuta Hirota and Teruta Ishihara, Katsunori Kikuno versus Diego Brandao, Takeo Mizugaki taking on George Roop, and former title contender Kyoji Horiguchi taking on Chico Camus, a flyweight, which I think will be a fun fight. I want to break down the middleweight and heavyweight fights, though. I've sort of been leading the charge with the breakdown, so I might save my breakdown for the end here. I am picking Gegard, sort of like the Kelvin thing. I love Uriah Hall, but Gegard, I think, is maybe the worst style matchup you can make for Uriah Hall currently. You know, Hall is really good at leaping in when someone makes a little fuck up and using that sheer athleticism to capitalize on mistakes. And he's fighting a guy who doesn't make any mistakes in Gegard. I think this fight to me screams 30-27 Gegard. But Pat, what are you thinking in this middleweight co-main event at the Satayama Super Arena in Japan?
Well, I think this has Gegard Mousasi homecoming written all over it. Uriah Hall, he's got the ability. We've seen the flashes of potential, but we've also seen just choke jobs. Gegard Mousasi is a seasoned vet. He's got far too much experience against far better opponents in the fight game. I think he has everything what it takes to absolutely just piece up Uriah Hall, with the potential exception of Uriah Hall doing a little wall install. I don't think he necessarily wants to take it to the ground with Mousasi. Mousasi's clever off of his back. He's got good grappling. But Uriah Hall may be able to use a perceived strength advantage to bully Gegard Mousasi and maybe, just win based on cage control. I don't think he's going to want to stand there and strike with Mousasi. We haven't seen the Uriah Hall that wheel kick knocked out whoever that bum was on The Ultimate Fighter. We haven't seen that Uriah Hall since that episode aired.
From Hella Sella.
Adam, was it Adam Sella? I want to say it was Adam Sella.
Adam Sella, yep.
Okay. Yeah, we haven't seen that Uriah Hall since that episode when he knew he was fighting a bum. And now he's fighting the best in the world. And Gegard Mousasi, he's top. He's top notch. He's got that good striking, and he's got that good ground game. And he knows how to put it all together. He may look like he doesn't give a fuck ever. And how much he actually does give a fuck is quite debatable. But he's good with it in the cage when he's able to find his openings. And I think he's going to be able to find him on Hall for sure. And, I think 30-27 is probably about right. I would love to see Mousasi finish somebody, but I honestly don't even remember the last person he finished. So, I think a nice outpointing is in order for Gegard in this one.
I'm taking Uriah Hall. I'm sorry. He has stopped his last two opponents. I think this is going to be the fight where he's finally back on track and nobody can deny it. Same with the Gastelum situation, coincidentally. Mousasi, yeah, he's good, man. He's good. It's going to be a tough fucking fight. But I believe that he will be finished. I just think the Hall's got the power striking. He held back at first. It cost him a lot. He almost got cut. But since then, he's done nothing but prove himself, I believe. And this is going to be the one where it finally puts him over the top, ends the fucking discussion. This is the perfect opponent. I was happy to hear that he was getting somebody serious, man. Because we all know that Uriah is capable of being a champion. And I think he's going to do it, man. I have to believe that he is going to do it. And I think he believes it now. And that was the problem at the beginning. He got in there. Everyone thought he was going to murder Kelvin. But it was jitters. He didn't know that what level he was at. Now he does, I believe. And I have an inside source that has also confirmed the same. He's actually feeling it, man. He's in that fucking what they refer to as the flow state of mind, which is the most important aspect. The power striking is going to destroy Mousasi this time. It's going to be a finish by Uriah Hall. That's my prediction. It is the word on the street.
It's the word on the street. I guess I did pretty much give you my breakdown of it at the top. I think Gegard is just too technical for Uriah. The line currently sits at minus 470 for Mousasi, plus 375 for Uriah Hall. So if you're confident on Uriah, go ahead and throw a little money down on him. A lot of, at least according to Vegas, a lot of one-sided fights. Almost every single fight has a favorite of minus 200 or greater. Cajun Johnson, Nick Hine, Li Zhengliang, Diego Brandao, Mizuta Hirota, Kid Yamamoto, Takea Mizugaki, Kyoji Horiguchi, all coming in giant favorites in Vegas, along with Gegard Mousasi, and in the main event, Josh Barnett. And I do agree with Vegas on this one as well. Josh has not fought in a couple of years. He's gotten in a Twitter war too with a friend of the show, Front Row Brian, but hasn't fought since losing to Travis Brown via KO at UFC 168. Actually, before that, his most recent win was against Frank Mir, who Mir himself has gone on a nice tear since losing to Barnett. While Roy Nelson has been a little more active, Nelson has had 3 fights since Barnett's last one in 2013, but I don't really, I don't know. I'm not seeing much out of Roy now. He's 1-4 in his last 5 fights. The only win, of course, an overhand right KO against Big Nog, who has been obviously getting older, who isn't getting older. But yeah, Nelson, I think I've said a zillion fucking times on this show, his fights only go one of 2 ways. He gets the first round knockout, or he loses a one-sided 3-round decision. I think he throws that overhand right KO punch many times in the first round. Barnett is, like him or hate him, a very cerebral fighter. He'll be ready for it. He'll definitely have that left arm up. And after Roy Nelson throws enough right hand overhand haymakers and tires out, I think it'll be all Josh Barnett. And I'm thinking another 30-27 decision, if not 30-26. I mean, I'm feeling like this is another gimme pick. Pat.
Well, I'm basically with you on this one, Jake. Josh Barnett, I think, in spite of the layoff, he's going to come in here. And, I mean, he went 25 minutes with Daniel Cormier, and he took the best of what Cormier had and did not get knocked out. They broke each other's fists on each other's faces. Both went 25 minutes. It was a crazy fight. But Roy Nelson, although he does have some jiu-jitsu chops, he doesn't have anywhere near the wrestling skills that Daniel Cormier did. He's about the same height, and he's going to suffer a huge height and reach disadvantage in this one. Of course, hey, he knocked out the skyscraper, right? You know how big of a disadvantage is height for him. But again, Josh Barnett, I think his chin is fairly sturdy. It should hold up well, and I think he's going to out-grapple Roy Nelson. I think he's just going to grapple him into the fucking dirt, and I'm calling a round 2 submission for this one. I should say round 1, but for some reason, I don't know. I'm just feeling round 2. I'm thinking he's probably going to get the rear naked locked in on him, some form of submission of that manner, and I think he's going to take care of Roy Nelson fairly handily.
To be honest, I'm not even going to watch this fight probably. To me, the main event is Hall versus Mousasi. Josh Barnett, Roy Nelson, nobody really cares. I mean, deep down, do you guys really care? Josh Barnett, although I'm sure I would like him, get along with him, if I knew him in person. I don't know, man. I think he's a coward. He turned down a grappling match against Chael Sonnen, for God's sake, over the Front Row Brian shit, I believe, was what it came down to. I'm not calling him a coward, but you know he's looking and quacking like a duck. You know what I'm saying?
He is a faggot.
I just think this fight is going to be boring. I think it's going to be a cage hugger. Barnett's just going to get Roy up against that cage. I don't think anybody's going to be happy with this. And I think as soon as at the end of round 3, Dana's going to walk to the center of the octagon and fire them both. Word on the street.
Really quick before we get out of here, Ramses, any thoughts on Barnett versus Lister? Apparently, Josh was the first man to sub Dean Lister in 18 years.
The fight was a work, people. You're goddamn right, it was, man. Just look at the Twitter history alone. It speaks for itself. My God, that was like, if you were gonna script like a cheesy ass movie, like that's exactly what those two got together and did. It's like, oh, it's the last second, the very last second. I'm gonna fucking just submit you. Give me a fucking break, man. Yeah, I was not born yesterday. The fight was a work.
We've been aiming to do 90 minutes, and we're just about at that spot right now. Before we go, sort of random, just popped in my head, but lightning round. Pat, what is one series on Netflix or the torrents that you suggest the listeners get into? Quick.
Oh, dude, I don't even know, dude. I barely fuck with that shit at all. I'm into sports or nothing, dude.
30 for 30.
I mean, I guess that shit's all right. Fuck. I don't know. You guys need to tell me some shit to watch. I don't even know. I honestly, I watch sports. I don't watch anything else.
Ramses?
You gotta watch Mr. Robot. It's only 10 episodes so far. Season 1 ended. It's already renewed for a second season. I believe it was the best show put on TV this year. And on Netflix, Narcos, definitely. Tell Pablo Escobar through the, it's kind of dramatized a little bit here and there, but it's pretty much Goodfellas style. So those two shows, Mr. Robot, definitely. And the odd thing is, I don't know, Jake, I recommended that you listen to the an hour-long interview with the guy that plays Elliot,
that Remy, whatever the fuck his last name is, yeah,
Rami Malek or something like
Rami
that.
Malek, that's it.
A great job, came out of nowhere, surprised me. And what's weird is in the interview, he it's just that he talks like that.
Really?
Which and which he doesn't do on the show, which is fucked up. Yeah. But yeah, definitely best show, Mr. Robot. Tell your friends after you get done watching. Spread the word. It's a mind fuck.
I enjoyed it too. It was a mind fuck and a half. Mr. Robot. I haven't gotten into Narcos yet. Love me a little Rick and Morty. I don't even know why I brought that up. Just a random thing that popped in. Curb Your Enthusiasm. It's an old show, but if you haven't seen it, sneaky good, especially if you're a Seinfeld fan. And enough with the randomness. Thank you for tuning in. We will get out of here. Let's start playing the damn music. Once again, you can find us on Twitter at the MMA Podcast, themmapodcast.com for the links at the top of the page. As always, a big shout out to Mystery Meds, who I missed his tweet during the show about half an hour ago. He tweeted Bisbing would handle Machida. And he is on Twitter at Mystery Deja, and he is the motherfucker who does our badass outro. Lately been dropping a bunch of tracks, so follow him on Twitter. He's tweeting the tracks out. Follow me, and I'm tweeting them out too because they're badass. Shout out to the Don Enrique 44, AMS Darkside. Been with the show and been with the team for a while now. Who else? Of course, the original Gangsters, Ross Finkelstein before the L, Westland Eagle, AH, Hiro Shinwoo. Yao_ the truth, the original host and a beautiful man, C. Lowenstein, Mullen Labe, of course our boy Kevin Black, the Scottish Fedor, FRB. Check out the Filthy FRB show. Check out that Virgil episode, honestly. If you have not heard it yet, I think it's soundcloud.com/filthyfrb show/E41, or you can just find the links to subscribe. by following them on Twitter. It is so fucking funny. Listen to that. Who else? Our boy Relapse. Goddamn, I'm scrolling down and I can't shout out all of you. Josh Ball, the MMA enthusiast. Bill, the motherfucking butcher. You're all beautiful. Gavin Frost. We love the shit out of all of you. And, we're not going to stop doing this for a long time. Pat, what do you got to say to the good people listening to the MMA podcast?
Jake, I got to give a couple more shouts out to Ray and Jay in the UK.
Oh, fuck, Ray and Jay. Those
Ray and
beautiful
Jay
assholes.
In the UK, the Real J Jeans on Twitter at the Real J Jeans, and then your boy Ray at MMA Mental. Follow the boys, and then follow your boy P Money at Sweet Pappy Jones. You can hit me up on the Twitter, on the IG. We'll talk those fights. And we'll keep it bullshit free. Keep breaking it down with the homies.
Ramses, I'm so glad you have come back, and I hope we hear from you more often. Where do we find you, and where do we find the word?
The word on the street you can find on Twitter. Follow me at the Aunt Jimmy Show. And quickly, I'd like to shout out my online girlfriends, Katie Bear and Lexi Bear. Love you. A Girly MMA. Shout out to Yao, Hero, Brian Redband, Chael Sonnen, Front Row Brian, Kelvin Gastelum, Uriah Hall, Michael Bisping, Anthony Cumia, Nick Diaz, Nate Diaz, and you two guys, man. Thanks a lot. Good talking to you again. I'm back from the dead. Katie Bear, I'm coming for you. Word on the street.
Word on the street. Shout out to everyone. Shout out to Coach Jamie Huey. We haven't heard from Razor in a while, wherever the fuck he is. Shout out to you. And shout out to you, the listener, for listening. It warms my cockles that you decided to listen to the MMA podcast, and we hope you tune in next week. We got a lot to break down. UFC Japan, UFC 192, October 3rd. We'll be breaking that down, and we'll see you next week. We love you. We'll see you next week. We on.
Tune into the MMA podcast every Tuesday night.
Act the wild style, always been a foul child. Relax, sucker, I be the coming like Noah.
The MMA podcast, Jake is the host. And since Ramsey's been in a wheelchair, the Aunt Jimmy Show has been on a roll. I wanna say John Jones is a host, so I think that I'll pick up the phone and dial 213-457-3380. We got hot takes on the stove. You get blood on your clothes if you're sitting in the front row. I throw on my gi and then I lace the hoops. I'll have Gal lying down cause he ain't the truth. And if Alan wasn't a cop, I'd mention you. And shout out to Ross Finkelstein the Jew. Cause according to you, you're an MMA guru. Approved Bisping lost his hands count Dooku. If you're a fancy boy, you get a 2-minute slot. Mystery wants a title shot. So listen to the MMA podcast. Throw a high kick, but I block that. Call me Diaz, screaming George, where you at? I want the strap. But you know that I'll never tap. So listen to the MMA podcast. Throw a high kick, but I block that. Call me Diaz, screaming George, where you at? I want the strap. And you know that I won't tap. Mystery. The MMA podcast. Most of us just live and breathe this fighting shit. Shout out to Jake. Shout out to Jake.